Hey guys, welcome to My Life, My Mic with your girl Tasha. I'm here. So today's topic is going to be how my second son was killed. First son, we went over that. He was 15, Charles Walker Jr. He was standing at a bus stop about to give a girl some shoes that he had bought that was in his class, and he got shot because someone thought the shoes were Michael Jordan's that dropped that morning. Um, so that show was very emotional. So I said I would break it up and not do both shows at the same time. Um, Even though I am healed, I am still human, and yeah. So my second son, Tyreek Walker, he was 18 when he left the earth. Um, he already had one daughter. Um, in his ninth grade or 10th grade year. So she was alive with him for a short period of time. And he went to a cookout on the 4th of July. This case didn't get solved, but I do know that the individuals that were involved, um, unfortunately, are no longer on this earth. And it happened that fast. Within 6 months after his killing, um, things just started to happen. And yeah, but he was leaving the cookout and he was about to go. He got dropped off by his dad um, in the neighborhood because one of his friends called and told him to come there. So that's too much. That's pretty much all I'm gonna talk about that case because again, um, a lot of stuff happened that was very sad. But I do remember with the area that I lived in, unfortunately, I didn't know that I had moved over top of one of the individual's grandparents. So I will get into this story. I was getting off of work and I heard that this individual had been killed. And the whole day at work, I was, you could say, soft-hearted, um, because you don't want the pain that you felt on even your worst enemy. Um, Not on his parents, not on his family. I know what it did to me and my family, so that is a pain that I wouldn't wish on no one. But the whole day at work, I was sad about the situation. But then when I got home and I pulled up to my community, it was nowhere to park. And I was like, what is going on? And then I looked and they were holding a candlelight for that individual that had something to do with my son's death. And at that moment, um, it's like a light switch went off. Um, and I got angry. And I parked my car and I went in, and I know, none of these kids know me, know who I am or anything like that. But at that moment, um, I got very upset, like rage, like go in your house and get something and do something bad, like that type of rage. And as I walked in the house, I start having flashbacks of my son's candlelight and how they were peaceful and emotional. And the last thing you will want is someone to cause chaos at a time like that, at a candlelight, at a time where you're honoring the person that is no longer here. You know, people out there saying prayers. A very emotional experience. And in my life, I have learned to not take action on my first reaction. So by the time I got in the house and I went back in the hallway just to look again, I started looking at the number of people that was out there. Um, Not even 25% of what my son had, the amount of people I could count. So then the compassion came in and it overrided any anger for me in that moment. But before that, it was a lot of pacing back and forth in my house. I'm not going to sit here and act like it was just, I got mad and then bloom. No, it was some pacing back and forth. I called a few people to, um, you can say, give me some advice. I had called one of my, what I called him a spiritual advisor at the time. And it was crazy because at the time I had got this new phone and I know I stored his number in, but when I went back to get the number, it was someone else's number. So in the moment, I'm like, is that a sign for me to go out here and do what I want to do? And, but then I went to the person who gave me his number. It was through text. So I went back and was able to get the number and still called him. And he said he just felt the energy from the phone call. And he knew something was off with me. And I told him how out of all the times we spoke hours on the phone, I never had how did his number just disappear and be under someone else's number. His name was there, but it was under a totally different person number. And I knew who number that was. So I knew it was some type of error that I maybe did pocket in my, when your phone be in your pocket back then. Now the phones are, they shut off after 3 seconds or whatever. But yeah, so he was happy that I was consistent with trying to reach him. And he gave me some words of wisdom. And that's when I went out in the hallway and I started observing with compassion and not with anger. So Tyreek was, let's see, him and his brother were a lot alike, but Tyreek was my flashy kid. He was the kid who, you know, well, all of them care about their appearance, but he more so cared about the name brand and stuff like that. Tyreek wore his heart on his sleeve. I mean, when he found out he was having his daughter, he came home. And mind y'all, he's 16, almost 17. And he like, Ma, I got to move in with my baby mother because I don't want nobody else raising my child. And that was a whole conversation in itself, but that was just him. Even though he was young and he had responsibility, he was willing to stand up and do the best that he could for his responsibility. Even so, where he would drift away from me and try not to put burden on me to do things on his own. So the week I buried Tyreek, um, I was introduced to his second kid's mother, and we found out that she was pregnant with twins. So Tyreek today have 3 beautiful little girls who all grow up together, know each other, and his first daughter has his eyes. Like when when he passed, it was hard for me to look at her because it just brought so much emotion. It's like I was looking at him because those eyes are Tyreek had um the eyes that like went into your soul. And yeah, so it was a period where I had to, like, she would come over, and as soon as I see her, I'll have to run in the bathroom and I would cry. I'm not gonna lie, because the resemblance was just, it was a lot at the time. And then when his 2 other kids came, which was 2 more girls, um, they were split an image of him and his brother, and that was amazing. I mean, same color that both of my sons were when they were born, the height. Um, when I have them, it's like one of them is Tyreek and one of them is CJ. It's Charles, but they're girls. Um, so that was one of the blessings that I did have. When I buried CJ, his sister was pregnant with twins. Pregnant with twins. We found out the same week. And then when Tyreek went away, he had another set of twins. So while I was grieving, um, there were more lives being born. My grandbabies. And then, so today again, I think I said this before, I had 9. Yes, I look good. I have 9. And my daughter just had her second set of twins. Not just had them, they are over 6 months now. So, so Tyreek's funeral was just as big as his brother's. A lot of people knew Tyreek loved red, so everybody wore red. It was literally all love. I was more coherent at this funeral. Um, I was able to speak, be attentive. I was at the repast. I communicated with people, family. Um, it was crazy because I had just done it 4 years earlier. So, but this time, like Tyreek told me, it wouldn't be as difficult, but it was still the amount of pain, if you can understand. So, yeah, that was an experience. So when a month before Tyreek passed, he did come to me, just like CJ did. So when CJ came to me, it was probably 6 months before he passed. And I got off of work, and that day I think I drove home with my vest on. And when I got home, I went in my room. That's the first thing I do is take off my bulletproof vest. And when I took the vest over my head, he opened my bedroom door and was like, "Mom, we need to talk." And I was like, "Well, we need to talk about what?" And he was like, "I need to prepare you for when I leave this earth." And, just what any mother would do, I brushed it off. I was like, "Boy, close my door talking that nonsense. You're not going nowhere." And he just looked at me like, now I know today, like, she not ready. Um, so fast forward 6 months after me and him had that conversation, he was, he had left. And I didn't know that during the time after he passed, I was grieving and I was wondering why my children, they appeared to be handling it a little bit better than what I expected. Now they still cried, they still miss him, but they had an understanding that I didn't have. And that's the beautiful thing about kids, is that they so untainted, when you raise them without any harm or in a good environment, they're able to hold on to the innocence and the truth, I might add. So at one point when I finally went to my kids, it was after I had got out the black hole that we talked about before, where I was in a place where I was living, but I was existing, but I wasn't living. So I wasn't there for my children like I should have been. Up to 9, 10 months after my first son passed. So, excuse me. So, whew. Yeah, so during that time I had went and I woke up and I had talked to my children and they all had so many stories of my first son, Charles, telling them that he was leaving, that he was going, he wasn't going to be there. And he was telling them how to make sure they did good in school and make sure they continue to listen to me. And this was very hard because I had remember at that moment the conversation that me and him had when he tried to sit me down and tell me that he was leaving. So now we're going to fast forward to my second son, who um, did the same thing. But this time I knew to sit my little butt down and talk to him and hear what he had to say. And that conversation itself was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had to have, because it started off the same, but the same message, but different words. So he came, he said, "Mom, we need to talk." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm going with my brother." And I'm like, "What brother? You talking about your little brother? Where y'all going?" And he like, "No, I'm going with CJ." And I mean, my heart just dropped. And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You ain't going nowhere." And he like, "Yes, I am, Mom. I gotta go and I gotta do some work for God that I can't do here in the flesh." And he was like, "But you gonna be okay?" And I was like, "No, no, no, Tyreek, I'm not gonna be okay. What are you talking about? I'm gonna be okay." It took me 4 years I just like literally got my feet back on the ground from losing your brother. And he was like, "I know, that's why it's time." He was like, "Cause you're gonna be okay." And I was like, no. And he was like, well, I stayed around to do um, a lot of the things that you was upset that CJ didn't get to do. He was like, I went to school. I went to high school. Um, I finished. He was like, uh, I made big friends. I have a kid. He said I have kids, but I didn't catch on to that. He said I left you grandkids. Um, he said no. He said I'm leaving you grandkids. I didn't. What did he say? He said, okay, I didn't hurt nobody out here, and yeah, ma, I gotta go. I gotta go. And I'm like, no, and I started crying because in my heart I knew um, what that meant. And prior to that, I had a dream, and it was my grandmother, and I had never met her. She passed before I was born, but in the dream, I knew who she was, and she told me that I would be dealt a hand like hers. And my investigative butt, of course, had to go and dig and get information, and found out at that time that she had lost two children. I think one had passed and one was kidnapped. She got the neighbor to watch the baby while she went to church because the baby wasn't feeling well. And when she came home, the whole house was moved. So when I went back and my son is having this conversation with me, um, I know that it's real. I don't know when. So I attempted to talk him out of it. I was like, look, you got to go back to God and tell him you're not ready, that, you got work down here to do. Um, I was just trying to say anything I could possibly say to get him to change his mind. But he agreed. But I know my children, so he straight lied in my face, but I had to just take it. So he was like, okay, mom, I'm not going nowhere. All right, I'm gonna stay. It's fine. I'm gonna talk to God. It's gonna be fine. But I knew, and in less than 30 days later, same scenario. Sleep and same feeling. And as I'm getting that feeling, as I'm waking up and I feel the feeling, and I started to scream, but then I stopped because I knew I would wake everybody in the house. So I'm running out. I'm grabbing my stuff to put on, and I'm about to run out my bedroom door, and my phone rang. So I'm running down the steps, and I answered the phone, and it's the detective, and he said, Miss Massey, and I said, I already know. And he said, where you at? And I'm like, I'm coming out my door. And he was already pulling up. Um, uh, Same feeling, same drop of the legs. This time, um, the detective was able to help me. Yeah, so yeah. So I just kept going back to that conversation, wondering, was it something that I didn't say? But I didn't stay in that too long because I knew when he told me that he would go back and talk to God and like make a new agreement, that it was real. And the fact that when his brother did it, and then I realized how he was talking to the kids and all of that stuff, and he it was like I was the only one that was left out that didn't understand, and basically was stubborn and wouldn't listen to my first son. And so when the second son came and did the same thing, I had a different response. I wasn't going to let that one just go. So yeah, so that is the story on how I lost two sons in a 4-year span, both to gun violence. Um, Tyreek was killed in Suitland, Maryland, and CJ was killed in Temple Hill / Marlow Heights, Maryland. And that was one of the things that, before I end this segment, that was one of the things that got to me the most, was that when I was raising them as kids and we was living on MLK, and I used to see how much stuff used to happen in the streets of DC, I always thought, okay, I'm gonna raise them in Maryland, where I didn't hear as much, going on, especially when you stayed in the communities with the housing communities and stuff like that. So part of me used to be like, well, damn, I should have just been, like, sad to say, but I just felt as though I worked harder to provide and to have them in good, safe places. And I learned that no matter what area or whatever, we have our day that we're born, and we have our day that we're going to leave this earth. And now I learn to just love and enjoy every day, because tomorrow is not promised. And it took years to get that, even through death. So this was my life, my mic, with your girl Tasha here. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Make sure we get this ball rolling. Hopefully this story can help one person. I pray many more. Anyone who's going through losing children, they know exactly what I feel. And if you guys got any questions, DM me and we'll talk about it. Bye.